This one sort of flew under the radar. Did you see this? This is a little window into how shaky things are behind the scenes. Senator Rand Paul, of all people, a Republican, said something that should make Trump squirm. Rand Paul was on CNBC, and he was talking about the recent spending bill that was signed into law by Donald Trump. And let's listen carefully, but what I believe is being said here is that JD Vance was thinking of being on the no side with Rand. I mean, it almost seems inconceivable, but let's listen to what Rand Paul had to say.
My no would never have sunk the bill, and the reason it wouldn't is they were negotiating with me. If my vote were going to be the deciding vote, they would have negotiated. Okay. They were negotiating. There. Well, they were negotiating that morning. The vice president was very, very close to going with me versus the subsidies for Alaska. They eventually chose the subsidies for Alaska, which shows you something, that subsidies for Alaska and more money out there was actually easier for them than having to vote on the debt ceiling again in 3 months.
So I guess what Rand Paul is saying is that at least on the topic of goodies for Alaska for Murkowski versus having to vote on the debt ceiling, on that issue, not on the entire bill, but on that issue, supposedly, JD Vance was on the verge of siding with Rand Paul. Why? Well, because Trump and his allies jammed the bill with goodies for Alaska to buy Lisa Murkowski's vote and to avoid a debt ceiling fight before the election. And Vance, according to Rand Paul, was almost out of that way that they bought their way into passage of the bill. Rand had him, supposedly, until Trump's team decided, it's easier to throw some money at Alaska. We don't want the fiscal showdown. So think about what that means. Trump's hand-picked loyalist running mate was nearly ready, if we believe Rand Paul, to buck the White House on one of their biggest economic priorities over pork barrel spending. We were told it's an ironclad MAGA administration and coalition. And if you believe Rand Paul, and we can say a lot of things about Rand Paul, I don't think he would make this up. He's out here bragging, the vice president almost joined me in this rebellion. I don't think he goes on national TV and says this unless it's true and unless he's trying to send a message. So I believe that this is a signal. Trump's coalition is not as unified as it looks. And the fact that it only took some Alaska subsidies to keep it from falling apart speaks to me of more of a desperate situation than a situation of strength. We know the coalition wasn't strong because they had to go negotiate senator by senator to get them the goodies they needed to come out and support this bill. So very interesting in particular for what it means for any other legislation that Donald Trump may try to push through. We're going to have more of this. By the way, we have a daily hour podcast that's free. If you're used to listening to clips or watching clips, you can get the David Pakman Show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts in full, usually much earlier than the clips come out. So I invite you to do that. We'll have more on this topic there. You know, for weeks now, discussions have focused on Trump's big, beautiful bill and its potential Medicaid cuts. However, a far more dangerous, overlooked provision in the bill exists. At ground.news/Pakman, you'll discover what MAGA lawmakers quietly included, a provision that could block federal judges from enforcing court orders unless a bond is posted. And if this passes, it could render Trump above the law. This is a critical detail. It's largely unknown, and it really exemplifies this flood the zone strategy of the Trump administration. Now, this is why Ground News is essential. It really is the best way to uncover buried information by showing you not just the story, but its origins across the political spectrum. You can see bias ratings, credibility scores, coverage timelines, and their browser extension also will flag potential bias when you're on a news site, sort of guiding you to more reliable sources for fact checking. Ground News gives you a smarter and more reliable way to stay informed. I'm partnering with them to give you 40% off their unlimited Vantage plan, which makes it just $5 a month. Visit ground.news/Pakman, scan the QR code, or use the code Pakman in the app to start. The link is in the description.